Everybody, Michael here. Today, I want to talk about uniting the kingdom through the Spirit. Let's go. Okay, so recently I've been hearing a lot of calls for unity, and I agree with those calls for unity, but people need to understand the deeper meaning and deeper understanding of how we can unite people the correct way, not the false way. And I'm not a Christian, but I do follow Christ, and Christ said we must be united, or a kingdom divided against itself will not stand. And we are supposed to be a united kingdom, but we're a disunited kingdom. And we will not stand when we're disunited. But let's look at the true meaning of what Christ was talking about. When he said we're a disunited kingdom or a kingdom divided against itself, he's talking about you're divided against yourself because you're divided by ideology, by religious belief or denominational belief or political belief. You know, the left are disunited from the right, but then within the left there's not unity. Within the right, there's not unity. And the only real way there can be unity is through the Spirit. And the meaning of that is we are spirits. You know, God the Father is a spirit. We are made in God's image, which is in the Spirit. And when Christ said you must be born again of the Spirit, it means that you realize that you are a spirit, not fleshly blood. And when you realize that you're a spirit, you realize that every other human being in the world is a spirit. And we're all spiritual brothers and sisters, and that causes unity. Whereas when we still identified with the flesh, we're not united because we're divided by our ego concepts, as I said, such as race, religion, nation, political ideology, or whatever. People are divided. So the only way for us to be united is through the Spirit. And we do that by every individual realizing that spirit within themselves and becoming born again as a spirit and having that inner realization. And in Christianity, they call it being a born again in the spirit of Christ. In Hinduism, they call it being a born again in the image of the self. And in many spiritual traditions, they talk of this, about having a spiritual nature. And once we're all born again in the spirit and we have a spiritual revolution, we can be united. The problem we have is people talking about unity, but we can't be united as Christians, Muslims, Jews, because they're all contradictory of each other and they're all battling against each other. We cannot be united as leftists and rightists because they're ideological difference and there can be no unity in that. And I had a lot of calls for unity, but I have to say, you know, I'm not going to unite with Muslims. I'm not going to unite with communists. I'm not going to unite with National Socialists. I'm not going to unite with Satanists or Scientologists or ignorant Christians who don't know what they're talking about, such as the Candace Owens ideology of hating the Jews. I'm not going to go along with them. And just as I won't go along with leftist Jews who are trying to subvert my country and who are also trying to subvert Israel because they're strange people. And I won't go along with leftist Brits because they're subverting my country as well. Or subvertive Christians, such as the Vatican and the Church of England. They're promoting all this migration into our countries. So there's no point in having calls for unity. I'm not going to unite with any of these factions of people. I'm only going to unite with those born again in the Spirit and who have the spiritual wisdom to unite us. And I actually believe that traditionalism is the way. And in a traditional society, people would look to the aristocracy to run society. And I'm not talking about being rich and posh and all that aristocracy. I'm talking about a spiritual aristocracy of super wise leaders who are born again of the Spirit. And they are the representative of God on earth. And then they rule the people by God's Spirit. And that's not an arrogant ruling of thinking they're superior, but it's a humble ruling like Christ when he washed his disciples' feet. He was a servant to the people rather than the people serving the king. So a spiritual king would serve his people in the way that Christ did by washing their feet. An earthly king has it backwards. They think the people are subject to them and the people are there to wash the king's feet and give them grapes and alcohol and loads of money and everything. So I'm talking about a spiritual aristocracy. And the way I see things should be run is that you have a council of elders who are all born again in the Spirit, and they would be put in charge of the country. And then the people would unite behind the council of elders. And if you want to use an analogy, rather than a council of elders, you have Christ, who was the good shepherd. And then you have the sheep. Now, the problem we have is the sheep are trying to unite together, but the sheep don't know what the hell they're doing because they're blind. Whereas what you need is you need a shepherd. You need a good shepherd. Christ was the good shepherd. And I'm advocating for a council of elders to be the good shepherd, to lead the sheep. Because without a good shepherd, the sheep may be united, but they'll walk off a cliff. If they have a good shepherd, the good shepherd will protect and serve those sheep. And also the sheep will be vulnerable to being attacked by a bunch of wolves, which is currently what's happening to the sheep, which is a sheep is a metaphor for the people. And it's not a derogatory term, it's just an analogy. And that's what I'm thinking of setting up, a council of elders in this country following the way of the logos. And then the people can look to them to be the leaders and to serve the people. Not because they're on a pedestal and they're better than everybody, but because they put in the spiritual work and they have the leadership skills to lead the people. And their job is to bear good fruits. And if they don't bear fruits, then they can be kicked out, or they don't need to be funded or followed anymore. As Christ said, you'll know them by their fruits. So judge the council by the fruits that they bear for the people. So I am calling for that unity behind the council of elders following the way of the logos. And that's what this channel is all about. These is the plans that I have to get a team together and then to serve the people and get a membership scheme so people can become members, and then the council can help the people understand spirituality, how to understand the economy, how to start education, homeschooling systems, protection systems for our communities from all the troubles we face. And we can be together, united. And then even if the politics is going to hell in a handbasket, we could have, I don't know, a few million of us together standing strong in the spirit, following the way of the logos, that will counteract whatever evil we face, whether it comes from, radical communism, radical Islam. We'll have millions of us together following the way of the logos, following Christ, following the Father, standing firm, and we will be the future of this country, not them. Okay, so if you like what I'm talking about, please subscribe to this channel. More will be coming out in the future. Like the video if you like it, comment below if you have any comments, and God bless everybody today. Goodbye.